Aaron, Aaron, this is yours? No, I'm reading. I like yours.
World ugliest time.
No,
Oh, I got it.
it's Carnaby Street, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Ah,
I just had a mouthful of breath mints before I got taste delicious. Oh, really? How are you, Bruce?
I'm good, how are you?
Tired, but good.
I heard that. I need to go see him.
Okay, we'll call the meeting back to order, and we're going to take up item D4, Title III funding proposals.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the Board of Supervisors.
How are you?
I'm good, how are you? Today, 45 days ago, over 45 days ago, the County Administrative Office received a request for funding from the Milford Community Association for Title III funding to develop their Firewise Community Assessment, assistance with gaining Firewise communities recognition, communicating with state liaisons, assisting Firewise communities with treatment of vegetation. So that notice was posted in the paper for public comment. That's a requirement of the Secure Rural Schools and Community Self-Determination Act of 2000. It's reauthorized by public law 11340. At this point, the public notice has been published and the 45-day comment period requirements have been met. So the action requested from the board today is to open public comment and to approve and allocate the Title III funds as requested to the Milford Community Association, or approve and allocate a lesser amount saving Title III funds for other or future uses. And I've attached a copy of the proposal from the Milford Community Association, and I do know that there are representatives here from the Milford Community Association to answer questions regarding their program.
Thank you. Okay. I think I'd like at this time if I could ask Rick Washington, who's sort of heading a project for the Milford community, is also the fire captain there in Milford Fire Department, to talk on the project. Thanks, Rick, for coming. And I know you've been involved in this from inception, and I think Rick will have quite knowledgeable about what's going on, and will be probably best served to be in the best position to answer any questions any of us might have. Thanks, Rick.
Sure. Rick Washbach, Milford Community Association spokesperson for the fire safe project that we're doing down in Milford. Last time I was in here, we submitted a budget to the Board of Supervisors, our budget. It's a $250,000 project with our match. Our is the difference between the Title III funds that are allocated to us, and we match the rest of that for the fire safe project. So, other than that, if I have questions, I'll see if I can answer them. Otherwise, I'll get back to you after I talk to the people from the Lassen Fire Safe Council, who's spearheading the project based on our funds that are available.
Does any board members have any questions?
The board received, there was a letter of comment from Mr. Niemer that was delivered after the agenda was posted.
Okay, is there any other public comment?
I have a question for Rick. You're intending on doing approximately 60 homes, is that what you're saying? Minimum of 60, is that?
We have the ability to do more or less than 60. It's on public comment that we get once the fire safe project is posted. People will come to us in the community association and ask for a risk assessment of their property or their homes. And through it'll work from approximately the Milford Community Association post office area, and it'll work up to north of Rand Road.
Okay.
On the west
The
side.
trees, basically, yeah. That was my next question, where you're where your boundaries were.
I tried to find an area that needed the most work done, and it's the area that the Clark fire kind of blew around, and now it's overgrown throughout the years, and the areas on both sides of that have burned off in the past and are pretty good. It's just that certain area where the fire is.
So the homeowners have to contact you?
Yes, we'll actually contact the homeowners also, and that if for some reason they have any other questions, they'll contact the association prior to us sending out our archaeological studies that we have to do on their properties, or certain properties that we pick out that are hit and miss.
Supervisor Chapman?
Yeah, I just have a few questions. And first of all, I want to say I think it's a project that needs to be done, and I commend and appreciate the work put forth by you, Rick, and by the Milford group to get this accomplished. So I'm fully in support of anything we could do to facilitate that to start with. But in that context, though, there are also, I think, some responsibilities for disclosing what it is we're doing, so there's total transparency with the project, so people aren't out there making comments that would otherwise be generated. So this match of $112,000 that you're talking about, which is the local match you're providing, where does that funding come from?
The match for this comes from the removal of debris and whatnot from the property, which large trees get chipped up, sent to biomass.
So there's a value recovered from as you clear out the desired understorage.
Correct, yes. This will cost the citizens that want their property clean $0.
Okay. So it's not coming from the people on the property owners, it's coming from a product that could be generated from that.
Correct.
Okay. Are we going to be able to do 112,000? Is that a realistic estimate?
I believe it's realistic,
Okay.
yes.
That's all I want to know. The other questions I have, and this has to do with compensation. Obviously, when we look at it, I think it goes to the heart of what Mr. Niemer's letter does address. And if you haven't got a copy, I'd be happy to give you this copy here. But what it's something that has come up with a number of projects in recent years dealing with the Lassen County Fire Safe Council in terms of how their grant funds have been utilized. You know, a portion of it obviously needs to be paid to the contractors and so forth who do the work, because that's the bulk of it, you would think. So the question I have in terms of dealing with Fire Safe Council, what sort of administrative costs are we seeing out of the $138,000 being utilized either for your own organization, but more importantly, for their organization providing the assistance that they do?
Our organization gets $0 out of this.
Okay, I appreciate that, and I'm glad to hear that.
Okay, the Lassen Fire Safe Council, I couldn't tell you right off the top of my head what their profit margin is on that or whatnot. But I did talk to some board members of the Community Association last night. They assured me that based on this email that they got, that no funds will be allocated without a detailed description of where these funds are going.
And I have no problem with the monies being spent, I just want to make sure that because we did have an issue with the Fire Safe Council asserting as they thought as a private nonprofit, they were not responsible for disclosing to what extent that they expend funds, and we found out once they finally did, based on their tax records, and actually it was Mr. Niemer, who, I don't know how he did it, but somebody went out, they were able to go and access IRS documents in terms of tax filings, and it was determined that over $250,000 of $1 million program was being paid to, board members and to hired staff of the Fire Safe Council. And I think, the focus is, the representations are made that these monies come in are to provide public benefit, and that's great, but when you have the public benefit being reduced by self-compensation, I think that becomes an issue that the community needs to tune into, and I don't want to see your program be affected that way. So hopefully, as many of those dollars that are allocated can go for work on the ground to get the work done. So,
Well, that's what we'd like to see also.
and so as long as there's going to be a full disclosure on your behalf and their behalf, working on your behalf, I think that makes the program more than acceptable.
Well, I can assure you that the Milford Community Association will have a full disclosure. Lassen Fire Safe Council, that'd be between you and them.
Yeah.
Good help you out on that.
If they, as a subcontractor to you, it's going to be incumbent upon you to make sure they tell you what it is they're doing. At least that part of it. I mean, the rest of it, you're not on the hook for the rest of them. But as far as what they do for you, that needs to be clearly defined. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, thanks for those comments, well taken, and Rick, I just want to, also publicly thank you. I mean, you have a lot of things on your plate, and you're enjoying retirement, but you certainly didn't need to jump into this beehive. But anyway, thank you. Rick does a phenomenal amount of stuff for the community down there. He's been a tremendous help to, me and my family too, volunteering at the track and helping with the bowling alley. He's a tremendous asset for the community. And there's just one more of the long list of things that Rick's done for the area since moving here. So thank you, Rick. So,
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to comment? Okay. If not, we'll bring it back to the board, and the action requested is to approve and allocate Title III funds as requested, or approve and allocate a lesser amount. Pleasure.
Julie, this is all the Title III funds. I mean, didn't the sheriff, he put in for some too, or is he still gonna want some Title III funds?
The amount that was allocated to the sheriff was last year's money. This is the total amount of this year's money.
And the amount that he was given last year, he can use this year until it's done. He has up until, what, 3 years? No.
I don't see any requirements as far as time, so I'm just waiting for the ability to reimburse him for costs that are expended. Summertime maybe, is a better.
The same goes for fall and CSC. I see Chris back there, he's one of them, they got some Title III money, it was last year's money. But I always do not asking for any for this year.
This is the total amount. We don't actually have the money. I contacted CSAC last week because the timing was delayed this year. They said we should be receiving a check any day. I'm confident it's going to be right around that dollar amount, so that's why I said it, or the total amount of funding, because I'm not sure if it's going to be a few dollars more than that or a few dollars less.
Basically, we don't put this money to work in the community, it just goes back to the
Right.
state.
And that, as long as the sheriff has enough to work with, and I think he indicated he did based on the allocation last year, and obviously Chris is working with the monies that they were allocated, so this gives an opportunity for another program to get going, so I'm fully satisfied with the division of monies.
Thank you. Okay. Do we have a motion to approve Title III funds as requested?
I'll make the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, any more discussion?
Given the assurances we have, I'm fully in support of it, and I don't know that.
All those in favor say aye. Any objections? Okay, the chair votes aye, so it passes unanimous. Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Rick, for doing that. Appreciate it. All right. Let's take up item F1, or appointments to fill a special vacancy for the courthouse square revitalization task force committee.
Okay, so the clerk advertised for individuals interested in serving on the committee. You have those applications in your packet. There were four applications that have been submitted today.
How many are we looking for?
Three public at large positions. And if I may, Mr. Chairman, I was happy to see the response that we have. We've had a number of people over, not just since the notice went out, but well before, have served and helped county. Janet Corey served on the courthouse committee back in the 90s that oversaw the renovations of the courtroom and most of the building space in the historic part. And she obviously is still interested. And I would note though on the agenda you have her spelled as C-O-R-Y, and it's kind of a misspell. Her name is C-O-R-E-Y. So maybe for the minutes and whatever, we should make sure and tune into that. And I would fully like to see her serve on this committee. Linda Robinette is a neighbor that lives across the street. I've actually had a number of neighbors in the area over the years that have served on the board since this is in my district, and those who have looked at the backside of the courthouse since they've lived on their properties in particular have a great interest in what happens on the square. And Paula Panfilio, who lives next door to Linda, had been very interested and active in recent years, but she's superintendent of a school, principal superintendent of a school out of the area right now. Her husband still lives, they still have their home there, but she's working out of the area. Obviously would not be able to serve, but I thought it was nice that Linda stepped forward and indicated an interest. She's newly retired and has time and would like to be involved, so I would like to see her appointed. And I think Skip Jones he's right now involved in working with Public Works, I know, on the restoration of the front of the Veterans Memorial, all the doorways and entryway there, and with his construction background and so forth, I think would be a great asset to the committee as well. So that would be my third choice, and obviously Ms. Spencer is put in for it. I like her, and I think her interests are genuine, but I think the other three would be better suited for the committee. And I would move the appointment of those three.
Thank you. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any, first of all, moved by Supervisor Chapman, seconded by Supervisor Pyle. Before we take action here, I'd like to give the public opportunity to weigh in on this. Is there any public comment on this matter? Okay, if not, is there any further discussion before we take the vote?
With the 4 applicants, should we maybe have an alternate in there too?
I don't know if that's.
I don't think it's necessary. I mean, you could. I mean, if we have a member who's not participating, then obviously we could come back and, ask that person to step down and go to the next person and include them. But I mean, she would have an opportunity to come and attend the meetings, and I would imagine she would, so it's not like her voice wouldn't be heard. I think Ms. Spencer, the other applicant, I'm sure that would be part of it. We also have the need to, Mr. Egan, to designate 3 individuals from county staff, and I think the board had directed Richard to come up with that. So as soon as we get those 3 designated things, then the committee can meet and maybe start looking at getting the work done.
Okay, any other questions?
I got one other question on this year. I mean, is this a proper way to vote, or is it would it be better to have like a paper vote, everybody check off the 3, and it makes no difference to me. I'm just gonna ask.
I don't think there's really any certain set way. Sometimes when we have various applicants, we vote on our first, second, third choices, or
Boards and commissions outside of our committee structure, that's generally how we try to do it, like we did with RCD.
yeah.
That's right, exactly.
Is there anyone that would has an objection to how we're doing it here, or are you guys happy with the motion? I'm happy. You guys are happy on that? Okay. So, without further ado, we'll take a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
All right.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Chair votes aye. Passes. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's take up item H1. That is the property tax item, property tax administration settlement agreement, appropriation and release. Richard, would you like to?
Sure. Mr. Chairman, the board has been engaged in settlement talks with the city of Susanville for several months regarding a dispute about withholding of property tax administration fees for the collection of taxes. That was ultimately found to be in the city's favor based on a Supreme Court's ruling. And so the action in front of you is to appropriate the funds for the settlement agreement that was approved in December. Because it's an increase to the budget, it requires a 4/5 vote.
The money's there, it's allocated for that purpose, it just needs to be appropriated.
It was not appropriated, it is there in the fund.
Yes, it needs to be appropriated, it was never appropriated.
Yeah. Hi. How's it going? Yeah.
If it's okay, I'd like to have a little more
Oh, you
information
betcha.
on the subject.
It's always okay to hear from you.
Basically, I just want to remind the board, and for the benefit of new board members, that the reason this item came about is because in fiscal year 3-4-4-5, the state passed some legislation to help fund the state's budget. They did that by way of the sales tax, triple flip, and the VLF swap. As a result, property tax admin fees were increased for cities throughout the state. Almost immediately, lawsuits were filed. In anticipation of loss of this, we collected the increased admin fees and we set them aside pending the outcome of legislation. It went all the way to the Supreme Court, or litigation, not legislation. It went to the Supreme Court. They ruled in favor of the city, so now we're ready to return the funds.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from the board members?
So the only thing I haven't seen, Mr. Chairman, is the smart thing is what the county auditor did, is instead of having the money be spent, she sequestered that money pending the outcome of the litigation, and because of that, we have the funds there. The other side, if we had ignored that, spent the money, we'd be in a position of having to find $400,000 to repay just because of the court decision. So I appreciate the auditor's leadership on that issue.
Thank you, Jim, for those kind words. Is there anyone else who would like to comment on this? Okay.
I would move, Mr. Chairman, that we appropriate the $402,230 that has been set aside in this fund, Fund 140, for the purpose of restoring the funds back to the city of Susanville pursuant to the agreement that was worked out last December.
Okay, it's been moved. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Any further discussion?
Should have a poll vote because it requires a board this vote.
Okay. Madam Clerk, will you call the vote?
Supervisor Chapman?
Aye.
Supervisor Alba?
Aye.
Supervisor Pyle? Supervisor Hammond?
Aye.
Chairman Lassen?
Aye. Okay, thank you. Okay, let's,
And the city thanks you too. They told me to tell you guys that.
okay, let's take up item H6. Richard, would you like to do the intro?
Sure. So as the board is aware, we're conducting a sale of tax defaulted property in May. There's a provision in the Revenue and Taxation Code that allows other governmental entities, special districts, et cetera, to essentially object to the sale of property and then negotiate for the purchase of it directly rather than having to go to auction. That's the subject of this issue. The Spalding Community Services District has the need for one of the parcels that's up for tax sale. This is a parcel that we've offered, Nancy may help me here, 3 or 4 times, I think, in the past.
This will be its 5th time going up to auction.
With no bids received. And so it's our recommendation that the board approve the sale to the Spalding Community Services District for the established minimum bid, which is $100. That will result in not collecting all the taxes and penalties that have accrued.
How much is that?
851. It is a very low. It's one of the parcels in Spalding that requires either 4 or 6 to have a building site, and this is 1 by the nature of the way the subdivision was done. So it's essentially unusable piece of land except for what the
What does Spalding District want it for?
they want to. Is it and Mr. Gallagher's here to address the purpose. I believe it's for a tank. Is that? Yeah.
Chris Gallagher, General Manager of the Spalding Community Services District. Our board is looking for interesting ways to figure out how they can help suppress fire and do different things for our fire department. Like you have been talking, the Title III funding that we applied for and the pine needle cleanup and things like that. we just don't have the tax base to keep up the fire department. So they came up with this alternative whereby, since we can't replace our equipment, we decided to look into strategic ways of placing water tanks throughout the community that could be used for firefighting purposes during major fires that we would have. And this is one of the pieces of property that we thought we could sink a tank and have about a 3,000 gallon supply of water available in a strategic area. So we're looking at, we haven't just looked at this spot, we're looking at a number of parcels throughout the district, so that since we don't have fire hydrants and a regular fire system, we'll have at least some supply of water in various pieces of the Spalding district. And this is one of them that works for our strategic plan for that at this point. And so that's why we objected to the sale and are interested in the parcel.
I think it's a great concept.
I got one question, Chris, or Richard, or Moyer, somebody, you can't build on this parcel, because it's only one parcel, but is he gonna be able to put a tank there?
That's a good question for Maureen.
Well, I think the prohibition, the reason why the 4 and the 6 lots has to do with sewage and septic.
And water.
Yeah.
And water, in terms of using it for a living arrangement, since this would not be an occupied parcel like with a dwelling, I think using it for something like a water storage tank would not violate the,
Setbacks may apply.
yeah.
Well,
If it's underground, it's.
anything
yeah.
above ground it may apply, underground maybe not so much, but it's not something I can just answer off the fly, sorry. No.
And this is intended to be underground. We're gonna dig.
But I'm pro water
as long as
tank,
we
I gotta say that. I've always been pro water tank, and I will always be pro water tank.
I think that the 4 and 6 was when they resurrected the subdivision from the 1920s, and I learned a lot about this when I was on the Water Quality Board. And they, of course, had the biggest concern about the sewage disposal, and if you having such little lots. So back in the 1960s, when this 40-year-old subdivision got resurrected, because of the requirements for lots that were in place in the 60s in order to rehabilitate that, the old lot configuration was so substandard and stuff. And so depending upon the percolation of the soils in whatever areas would determine whether it was a 4 lot or a 6 lot, and that's where that came about. But that had to do with establishing residential home sites in this area, and this is not a residential home site.
Not meant for that at all. And each one of those parcels is 30 by 100, so you at least have a space for setback if you're putting it in the middle and things like that, so.
But I think if it's underground, the setback is not even a factor.
And it's just a tank in the ground.
I checked into it, it's been $100.
Yep.
Let's get the $100, they can worry about it later.
All right, is there any other questions? Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Hi, Violet, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I was wondering, won't that have an effect on the lake and on the farmers? If you're taking all the water, storing it?
No,
I don't think anybody ever checks into this crap
Well,
goes
it
too
would
late.
probably be 3,000 gallons less in the lake, so.
Yeah, and given to the farmers that we need.
Thank you for that.
I make a motion to move.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded.
To adopt the resolution, is it a resolution?
Adopt the resolution,
14,014.
approve the 13th, direct clerk, all 3, 1, 2, 3.
Would the maker of the motion like to read the,
If you want it all, action requested approve the attached resolution that would authorize the chairman the chapter 8 sale of the parcel number 077-363-03-11 listed in the purchase agreement to Spalding Community Service District, and approve the purchase price of $100, and direct the clerk of the board to provide the treasurer tax collector's office with 5 executed copies of the purchase agreement to be forwarded to the state controller's office within 3 days of the board.
thank you. You've been far too quiet over there today.
I'll second that motion without reading.
Okay. Okay, any further discussion? If not, we'll, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye, passes unanimous.
Thank you.
Good, Chris, appreciate it. Alright. Let's take up item H5.
Mr. Chairman, I'm a shareholder of one of the potential members of the memorandum of understanding on this.